Want to know my name too. So I am thrilled that we're at this point in our program today because we're now going to have our expert panel, and I will let our experts introduce themselves. But just to let you know, the purpose of this panel is to really hear from individuals on the spectrum and their family members. And so we have a set of questions that were pre-submitted that we're going to ask, and I've already been meeting with them, sort of talking about what we might talk about, and it's really been exciting, so I know you're going to enjoy hearing their experiences and perspectives. And then we'll save some time at the end for you to be able to ask any other emergent questions that might come to mind while you're listening to them. So I know you're going to be very respectful and supportive and smile and be friendly to them. So thank you for that in advance. So I'm going to let us jump right in, and Bradley is going to go first to introduce himself.
Well,
and you'll want to pick up the mic.
Like this. Well, my name is Bradley Wing, and I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 4. I have a degree from Madison College in Civil Engineering Technology. I graduated in 2015 with a GPA of 3.6. And I have worked at various state agencies such as Department of Revenue, Department of Natural Resources, Department of Transportation, as well as the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, which I am currently at. They have all been LTEs, but they have been great positions. Now I am trying to get into a permanent position where I can get benefits and plant roots. So.
Adam.
Hey everyone, just want to say thank you guys so much again for all coming out. It means so much. It makes things like this really meaningful. My name's Adam. I'm 24 years old. I moved to Madison a year ago, actually now. And I work at Epic Systems in Verona. My little brother Seth is 8 years old, nonverbal, and I really want to stay involved and be a proactive force in his life, even though moving away, and I hope to someday move back and really see him excel in life.
My name is Pam Miller, and I'm the proud mother of Gijik and Minnow Klauder. And we've been working with the Weissman Center for 8 years now. We have a site on the Weissman Center website called Gijik's and Minnow's Holiday Cards for Autism. So we've been raising money for the Weissman Center for 8 years now, and each year or nearly each year, Gijik has added a new card to the collection. So if you have a chance to check that out, please do. And you can send me a check, and I'll send you some beautiful Christmas cards. And I chose the Weissman Center, noticing Gijik's artwork at 6 years old, and I said, we have to market this. And I chose the Weissman Center because I wanted to affect as many people as possible, and I wanted our money to go to research, and I thought that was the way that we could do this. So here I am 8 years later, mustering every bit of courage I can to sit up here at the panel and talk to you. So, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Hi, it's me again. I'm taking off my executive director hat and I'm putting on my mom hat. I have a 9-year-old son on the autism spectrum. His name is Clyde. If anybody knows Clyde and you meet him for the first time, you may not know he's on the autism spectrum, but that's not how our journey started. And he was diagnosed just before his 3rd birthday, and it has been a journey since then. But I wouldn't change it for the world and who he is and what he is. And it's because of him, it's who I've become because of him. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along.
Yeah, so that leads right in to our next question is, when did you first notice differences about your child's development, and what was the diagnostic process like? And you could also, Bradley, talk about how you knew there were these differences.
Well, when I was at the age of 1, my mom and dad thought there was just something different with my hearing at first, but then at the age of 2, one night I was crying. My mom was even crying too because she was really worried on what was going to happen to me, and they reassured me that everything was going to be okay. They thought I'd lost my spark. And then at the age of 4, I was diagnosed with autism after the first year of early childhood, which has helped me grow, as well as speech therapy, as well as I first realized I had autism when I was like first grade, when my mom started working at a place called Families with Autism, and I realized that was a disability, and then I continued to receive in-home therapy as well as speech therapy and OT and PT, and I'm really happy I did.
So Seth was diagnosed when he was 2 years old. Seth has a lot of siblings, a lot of older siblings, so my dad had really been experienced with like the childhood developmental process at that point, and how kids tend to go along if at a normal rate, quote unquote. And it was kind of evident within approaching his second birthday that he wasn't speaking, and just something definitely different there. So he was diagnosed in his second year. And
do you want to tell how your parents told you?
Yeah, so I was a freshman in college at the University of Georgia at this point, and every couple so months, my parents and some of my siblings would come up to visit, and they brought Seth along one day, and kind of with a heavy heart and lump in their throat, and they said, "Hey, just want to let you know that your brother's autistic," and I said, "Cool, along for the ride."
Gijek was my firstborn, and so I didn't really have anything to compare him to, and so I thought, well, all kids are like this, and so when he would have a meltdown, I just thought, well, all kids are like this. I'll just ride it out. We were very fortunate to have a pediatrician that was knowledgeable, and so when we went in at about 18 months and he wasn't talking yet, or he wasn't focused on something that he should have been focusing on, he called the Birth to 3 program right away, which got us rolling. And we went to the audiologist. He got us into the audiologist and the neurologist, and so we could rule those things out. So we were very fortunate that way, and it is my hope and my wish that more of our medical professionals would be able to stand up and have the courage to say to us, let's check these things out. Because the earlier we move and the earlier we get going, the better they roll, right?
So I mentioned Clyde was diagnosed just before his 3rd birthday. We started noticing some differences in his behaviors and his everyday life probably around 2. And I had just had another baby at that time, and so we were kind of blaming it on having another baby in the house. My husband is deaf, and so we use sign language in our home, and my son, by the age of 3, only had about 20 spoken words and about 40 signs in his vocabulary. And he was unintelligible with his speech. And every time we went to our pediatrician, we didn't have a supportive pediatrician at that moment. Every time we took him to the pediatrician, he would say, well, he's learning 2 languages, he'll catch up. But we knew something was wrong. He had a lot of behaviors that should have been red flags for us, but we didn't know anything about autism, him being our first son. So he would stare out the corner of his eyes and spin in circles. He would pound his head on the floor in the middle of the mall. He couldn't even stand next to other toddlers, let alone play with them. He didn't have any imaginary play. We went to our pediatrician 3 times. And the final straw was when my babysitter said she couldn't take him into the library because he would scream and put his fingers in his ears when they walked into the library. It was because of the lights. So we went back to the pediatrician again, and we said, no, something's not right. And he said, well, let's send him for testing, and we'll eliminate autism, and then we'll figure out what's wrong. Well, we didn't have to eliminate autism because it was autism. And that was a pretty emotional day because unfortunately I went by myself. My husband wasn't along, and it was the start of our journey, and it was one of those days.
Thank you. And I already heard little whispers of sort of advice for professionals, medical professionals and such. So I want to turn to your question number 3 on your notes team, to think about what would you like to tell teachers or schools, the advice you would give to teachers. And I know that there are several healthy professionals and teachers in the audience, so please be listening to these responses. So yeah, go ahead, Bradley.
Well, for our teachers, set the bar high for children with autism, just as you would for other children. Expect the same work out of them. Have confidence that they will succeed. Encourage them to be social, play with other kids. Encourage them to let them know if they notice an abnormal behavior in the student, or if care about their academic and social life, and communicate with their parents frequently. Just being open and honest and to every student possible. Treat every student the same, no matter what.
If I could tell teachers just one bit of advice, I would say to presume competence in your child, because we all know that this doesn't have anything to do with anything intelligence-wise or anything in the brain. You have motor skill deficiencies and things of that sort where eye contact is harder, and unfortunately, you would hope that your teacher has had come across this at some point in their early childhood education. But on just a normal level, sometimes we associate lack of eye contact with lack of focus, or just the fact that they're not registering what you're saying, and we just want to debunk that idea, right? So presume competence in your kid and know that in intelligence-wise, the ceiling couldn't be higher.
I would say get to know that student and meet that student where they're at, and then bring them up. Bring them up to where they need to be. But it's so important just to get to know the student as an individual, because if you don't, and you presume that he's going to learn in the same manner that every student in that classroom is going to learn, you might lose that student, and we don't want to do that.
My advice is communicate and collaborate. As far as communication, make sure to communicate with the parents. Make sure to talk to the students. Find out what they need. Find out what's going on outside the home. For collaboration, that student probably has other services outside what they're receiving in school. So if you can, try to get those professionals involved as well, because if you're working on something in school and they're working on something completely different outside school, it's going to be harder to achieve goals in those areas. But if you can work together on the same goals, those areas are going to be achieved much quicker, more likely to be achieved quicker, and you're going to see better results. So that's where I think communication and collaboration are just so important with parents and other professionals.
Great, thank you. Next, we're going to focus on the transition to adulthood, and Bradley is going to really lead the way with this question because he has made the transition to being an adult, where the other individuals on the panel, their loved ones are younger. So Bradley, this is your question number 5. Can you talk about becoming an adult and being independent?
Well, being an adult, you gain a lot more responsibilities. you gain more expenses, you gain more, you gain more independence, you gain more, like for my house, at my place, I'm still living at home with my parents, but I am still independent, such as paying rent, paying for car insurance, paying like almost all of my expenses, but I still have my car to get myself to and from work, and I even have that paid off, and so and then but being an adult is hard. It can be hard work. You have to help around the house more, and like my house, I'm in charge of doing vacuuming and mopping every other weekend, as well as, and support I get is with job coaching, as for interviewing and getting other jobs, in which they talk about interview practice. The hardest part of adult life, their job, is the hidden curriculum rules. That is you definitely want to review that.
Could you talk about what the hidden curriculum means?
Hidden curriculum means like the unwritten rules of like social life and work life, on what you can and can't do at work, which they don't specify in their handbook, and which are not taught. And this next question says, can I go to the third part of this question?
Absolutely.
Well, what about dating? Well, it makes most sense for a person on the autism spectrum to have a partner who is also on the autism spectrum, because they understand one another better, and I mean they can help each other when things are not going so well or they need help. But dating, for me, I feel that I am happy to be single. I mean, unfortunately with dating, there are pros and cons to both being single and to have a relationship. I mean, the pros for being single is you get a lot more downtime to yourself. You don't have as many expenses. but yeah, I mean, like I have to give up some of my hobbies, and so.
Thank you. Now what we're going to do, this is going to be your question 6 panel, thinking about advice for other parents, or what would you say you want to share with other parents?
Set the bar high for your child. Encourage them to ask them to do household chores. Encourage them to do job applications. Encourage them to do social activities with like the awesome social group, or with their church, or help with like the food pantry, or like for my family, we help at the community dinner at church every weekend. Not every weekend, but every Wednesday of the month, first Wednesday of every month. But really get them out of their comfort zone, not being on the computer all day, not sleeping, which on the weekends I'm really tired, and my mom pushes me out of my comfort zone even though I'm an adult, and but it's a good, I'm really happy about that at times, which it makes me a better person.
Could you say about your mom and dad about therapies and pushing you a little bit there too?
About therapy, yeah, reach out to get in-home therapy. When I was a child, I had in-home therapy, which I originally was upset a few times about because I wanted to be independent, but I realize now that it has really helped me grow and get me out of my comfort zone, learning to be social, learning to be more independent, and learning how to interact well with others.
Thank you. All right, Adam, you can give advice to parents or other siblings.
Sure. So one thing, especially if your child is nonverbal or struggles in communicating with other people, that's got to be one of the most frustrating things for a kid growing up to have to deal with. So make sure that you surround your kid with people that are willing to understand that it's simply harder for him. So Seth has a little sister, Emma, and she's one of the most important people in his life, has grown up without just finding out one day that he's autistic. You know, it's something that she's just grown up with, and she could not be more important for him. I also want to say, so just along the communication front, and kind of along with what you were saying with therapy and stuff like that, find whatever avenue works for you to communicate with your child. That's the most important thing. Something that's really that my dad, my stepmom are working on that they found a lot of success with is RPM, and I don't know if anybody in this room is familiar, but it's rapid prompting method. Basically what it is a board with the letters cut out so that he can kind of punch in letters, but it's got a very specific tactile feedback that's necessary that allows him to keep going and keep focus. And so he's still nonverbal, like speaking wise to this day, but like we're really finding out how big his vocabulary is, and it's awesome.
Be brave. Be brave. For a lot of us, this was our first path, and we spent a lot of time in our denial because this wasn't what we thought life would be. And I'm going to fast forward 14 years and thank goodness this is what my life has become. Your turn.
I'd like to tell parents that you know your child best and you are the best advocate you can be, that the best advocate out there for your child. So never give up on them, continue to push them, and know that you sometimes have to push back to get what your child needs. And if you think that they need it, then fight for it and go through every avenue you can, use every resource in the world that you can, because nobody's going to fight for your child harder than you do.
Okay, I can.
Okay.
And I'm okay now. But boy, I'm just so lucky. We grow through these experiences. And just to find support, in those early roads, to look to your community to find support. I come from Hayward, which is a small community, and so we had our Birth to 3 program, we had our early childhood programs, but we're not from an urban area like Madison, and so one of the things that I do when I sell my Christmas cards is I create support for people, and I set up a billboard that displays where people in the community can get support, and a lot of our new parents come, and I have the opportunity to talk to them and steer them in the right direction. So I would recommend, if you're from a smaller town, you can start a support group. You can do these things on your own. It's a lot of grassroots work. In April, a group of women and myself, we get on the radio and we have an hour-long show about what autism is and where you can find support in our community. So, just because you're from a small community, don't think that you can't make a difference.
Thank you. We're going to do 2 more questions, preset questions, and we'll open it up to the audience for questions. So we're going to jump down to your question number 9. And what has been your experience with bullying? And not everyone may answer this one, if that's okay.
Well, unfortunately, when I was at Madison College, there were 4 other guys in my program. one of them even being a former teacher in his late 40s. They all were bullying me in various ways. And some of the things they did is try to throw me in a trash can, threw towels at me, pushing me around, encouraging me to do various inappropriate actions. I even carpooled them one day to a field trip, and they were so loud and rambunctious in the car and turning the radio up. One of the guys even was chewing tobacco in my car, and I told him to not do that, and he still wouldn't listen. And so they were so rambunctious, they nearly got me into a car accident. So.
But what did they do?
What they do.
Did the school
What
the school
you
did.
did.
Yeah.
So what did you do next?
Next, I went to the teachers in the program, and as well as the dean, as well as my DRS specialist, and then I told them what has happened, and immediately they took care of it. The dean, the DRS specialist, as well as one of the police officers had a meeting with me one day, and that all got settled.
Great. Adam, did you want to make your comment about the administrative
Yeah,
work?
so I don't know if I've had or witnessed my brother have any similar experiences. It's really hard to hear something like that. The only thing I can attest for is that the biggest and this isn't directly to him, so you can call it bullying or not if you want to, but the biggest antagonist in his life has been the school administration. So when he's about 5 years old, getting his IEP, ready to go into school, they fought, every step of the way, because they care about test scores, and even though his doctors say he needs to be in a regular class and things like that, that's one of the unfortunate realities that we live in. So that goes back to what you're saying, Mary, about you need to be the biggest advocate for your kid, and no matter how exhausting a process that could be, fight every step of the way.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that the Hayward school system has done for Gijik is to emphasize his positive points. And so he's an artist, and they use his artist platform to help him relate to the other kids. And so he has a lot of admirers at school, where his classmates would come up to me and they would say, "Did you know Gijik's a really good drawer?" And I'm like, "Yes." So, and they just allow him to let his strength shine, and in that way, he earns the other students' respect and admiration.
Okay, we're going to do one more question that I have, and then we'll open it up to everyone else. So, and this is your question number 7 on your list, team. So, we talked a lot about things that can be challenging or stressful and advocating in the community and things like that. So what do you do maybe as a family for support or sort of as an outlet? What are things you can do?
Well, like I went back to one of the previous questions, my parents and I have helped every first Wednesday of the month at our church for our community dinner, which we help set tables, help serve, help clean up, as well as we have also been to some awesome social events such as game night. We've also went to the Autism Society banquets. My mom is even is an advocate as well. She has served on some committees and board meetings. She's even she even was like a grassroots when we lived out in Virginia. she was like a grassroots for the schools for starting like a program for helping students with disabilities, as well as my dad is also a strong advocate also, which they are in charge, they're somewhat in charge of Mom and Dad's Night.
Adam, do you want to say things your family does for fun?
Yeah, sure. So, I can't like speak for like some of these extensive programs that Bradley can, but something that just really takes the pressure off of just those everyday stresses that can come with raising a child with autism. I can speak for my brother Seth. He loves the water, outdoors. So, luckily we're from Atlanta. We have pools everywhere. Don't here. But yeah, he loves the neighborhood pool. He loves the cul-de-sac that he lives in, playing with neighborhood kids. Those are his best friends. Every Father's Day we would go out to the lake, and that was always like a highlight of the year almost for him. It was great. Yeah.
Well, I think you should probably ask Gijik this question, and he, just to get to know your child and know what he enjoys. He enjoys animals and water and camping and, just being able to enjoy those things with your child. And it just really takes the stress off some of the day-to-day activities.
My family goes to a lot of Autism Society events. I'm not sure why. But we're a pretty active family, so we like to be outside, riding bikes, going for walks together. Clyde likes to make up songs and stories and things like that, so we I think it's really important just to hear him out and listen to him and what he has to say and things. He has 2 younger brothers, so sometimes they get a little more attention than he does, so we like to have special time too, where, I try to go out with the boys individually, the 2 older boys anyway. My youngest is 3, so he gets a lot of mommy time anyway, but, just going to the movies with him once a month, or my second one, he's typical, but we go roller skating once a month, or, just to give them that time to let them know that they're really special, not only as an individual, but as a family.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to open it up to see if anyone in the audience had a question for our panel. And remember to be friendly and nice. I'll restate the question. Yeah.
First of all, I want to say I appreciate your advice for teachers, and just because I'm a parent of a child with autism and I'm a special education teacher, so I take what you say as an affirmation as a parent, but I also take that as a teacher, and it makes me feel like yes, I'm doing what I need to do for my students. But my question is really more concerning with the students that I have right now. I don't know where his perception of autism came from, but anytime he hears the word autism, he gets very negative. He has a very low self-concept of what this means. He even has one word triggered a memory of a child with autism saying happy, happy, happy over, and he automatically puts his head down and shuts down. And I'm a strong advocate, this is a great thing. I know he has so many different talents and qualities, and he's extremely smart. I think the parent that I've talked to her, she kind of talks a little bit about it, but then she shuts it down. What advice can I give this parent to help her child, and aka my student, to start seeing that these differences are okay, that it's not a negative thing? So I'm really interested to hear what all of you have to say, but especially Bradley. How can I help this little guy?
Okay, I'm going to restate Bradley before you answer, because I know you have good things to say. Just for those who are listening online, so the question is how to give advice to a parent when the child has a negative view or image of autism and the word autism,
and the parent really doesn't know how to approach this.
Yeah, how to talk about the spectrum with someone in a way that's going to encourage their self-esteem. So, Bradley, I'll let you answer that.
I would say have this parent ask the parent to explain thoroughly what autism means what positive outcomes that could happen, explain what, like, kind of talk to him what the talents he has because of it. I mean, every child with autism has some sort of talent. I mean, that people with without disabilities don't. I mean, really explain like positive outcomes and what positive things can happen in your life, such as, you may have better advantages over other kids in certain areas.
Great. Anyone else on the panel want to respond to that?
We didn't tell Clyde until probably this past year about his autism, and I really felt it was a time for him to identify as a person with autism, because I wanted him to understand why he felt different and why things were going on in his life that were. We always have my second one always going, Mom, why does he get to go to the clinic and I don't? And he's jealous. He wants to go to therapy. I don't know. But so I wanted Clyde to understand why he was going to the clinic. Why did he have to go to OT every week? Why did he get out of class? And why did he have breaks during school and things like that? So explaining to them that their mind works differently, but it's not a bad thing. Like Bradley was saying, that you have such wonderful things that go on in your mind. It just works differently than other people. And then the other thing I would encourage is the family to go out and be with other families who are impacted by autism. Go to social events, go to walks, go find somebody in a waiting room at your therapy session that you can talk to and maybe make friends with. Whatever you can do, have your child play with other children with autism and do things as families together, because we just, we have a new family in our life that my son has made friends with their daughter, and I said something one day to somebody else about this little girl also has autism, and my son turned to me and goes, "Really? She does?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's why you guys get along so well." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And it was no big deal for him, but really helping them understand that identity, because things are going on around in their world that they may not understand, and this can help them have some of that closure, I think, to really get a grasp onto why am I so different. Different is not bad. Different is good. So I think that's some advice I might give.
All right, question here. Yep.
On a similar line, my son is on the spectrum also, and he has recently started to not use or accept the use of his tools, so the tools to help him self-regulate, and so he will refuse the tools, and then of course he will melt. Do you have advice or suggestions, Bradley, for how I can help him see and understand that his tools help him?
Okay, so I'm going to restate the question quickly, and Bradley can respond. How to help her son use the tools that would help him regulate. So he's sort of resisting using strategies or tools. So what would you suggest for her to help him?
Like help him, like maybe think of things in pictures. Maybe like I always think of things in pictures, which is like a lot of people hold on to certain objects which help their sensory input, and helping their sensory input, their sensory rooms there at schools, and that helps a lot. And
what if he doesn't want to go to the sensory room, or doesn't want to use those things? What would you suggest?
I would suggest maybe taking walks, or maybe explaining to them that everything's going to be okay, or maybe encourage them and give them strategies on how to do their work, and like make a step-by-step chart for them on what they need to do, and they can follow the written instructions, and or both orally too.
That's you. Kind of along with what he was saying, find this isn't an everyday answer, but there are fun events, in ways where they present things in a low sensory impact. I know the Blue Man Group goes around and does that low sensory performance and stuff. Maybe that's just a way you can show them that hey, some of these coping or taming those meltdowns down, some avenues out there for them can be fun too.
Okay. Bradley, you can finish.
Am I able to add something to that?
Yeah, you can add something.
Well, if there's a show or cartoon character a person likes, that will help them cope with their stress too. When I was a kid, I've always loved trains, which when I found a love for trains, that helped me cope with my stress when I was younger too. So.
Okay, great. I know I'm mindful that our time now, our official time together is up, so I want to say, my guess is that the panel will probably stay here and answer some more questions, because I saw a couple of other hands if you want to come up after, but I want us all to collectively thank our panel for being very brave and getting up to
See you, so good.